Hi everyone, it's Michael and welcome to the May 2018 Orchid Collection Update. You guys, I owe you a big apology. I have been so MIA lately. I am still acclimating to my new job and to traveling all the time. I was gone for like 15 days out of this entire month. So I'm kind of having a little bit of difficulty merging my passions and my professionalism. So thank you so much for your patience as I kind of get adjusted to this new world that I'm existing in. A lot of interesting things are happening with my orchids, but instead of showing you every single orchid in the collection like I did last month, I'm just going to focus in on the ones where something significant is changing. But to give you an update of what's changed since April, so in April I was flushing weekly. I stopped doing that because, as I mentioned, the TDS of my water is so high here. So what I did last month is I actually used duct tape to cover up the drainage holes of all of my orchids. I filled them with plain distilled water. I lugged like 6 gallons into my apartment, which sucked. But I just actually allowed them to soak for a period of about an hour to kind of loosen up all of that nutrient buildup, and then I flushed them with distilled water. So that being said, they seem to respond pretty positively to that. So instead of flushing weekly, I did that one intensive soak, and I'm going to be doing the same thing again this month. Now, a lot of you have offered very sound advice about getting a reverse osmosis system installed. I think that is how I'm going to move forward. It's not, money's tight right now because obviously we just made our transition from state to state and that is not cheap. But I do think that's something I'm looking at doing because I don't like how things are going without having a very low TDS source of water to flush with readily accessible. So the other thing is, and I talked about this briefly last month, but these orchids are almost every single one of them is going through a full adaptation process. Again, when I transitioned from Colorado, I expected, okay, they're coming out of a semi-hydroponic environment, they're going back into a semi-hydroponic environment, there'll be no adjustment. And that was very wrong. A lot of them are completely forfeiting their old root systems. They're putting down completely new root systems, which you'll see throughout this video. But I really thought that it was going to, the root systems would stay completely viable, but you'll see that things are branching off, things are creating completely new root systems. It's kind of peculiar. They are going through a very similar transition that I observed with my 4-month adaptation video, which I will link below if you haven't seen it. But I do think it's gonna take some time for these to really hit the ground running as they acclimate to this entirely new environment. So that being said, I'm also not using zero water anymore. I'm gonna do a review on it, but it just does not work for my orchids. It is a fabulous system. I like it as a consumer of water, as a human being, but it's just not working for my orchids. So I'll do a full review on that so you can understand why it wasn't a good fit for me, but it might be a good fit for you depending on your environment. So we'll talk more about that in a separate video. Now, this time around, I am going to forego showing you where everything is located spatially, just because nothing has changed since last month. If you're curious to know where these orchids are existing, go ahead and watch the April Orchid Collection Update video, which I will also link below. But at this precise moment, I am just gonna go ahead and jump in and start talking through the plants one by one. All right, my friends. So starting with number 1, I'm actually super impressed. This is obviously the first orchid in my collection, and for a long time it's done a whole lot of nothing. But now it is just starting to get some momentum, and you can see it is really positively acclimating because the new growth of that leaf is bigger than the old growths. So when you first convert orchids, it tends to stunt them a little bit and they put out tiny new leaf growths. And as it gets acclimated, it starts to put out bigger and bigger leaves and eventually will return to this size of the original leaf. And that's how you know it's fully acclimated. But this is a prime example of what I'm talking about with the branching off. Not only is it putting out new roots, as you can see poking out from the top there, oh, and this strange little Keiki continues to develop right at the base, which is very peculiar. But when you look at its old existing system, the root system is, you can just see from the black spots, the old root system is just starting to decay a little bit, but it's putting out all of these new little branches that are going to sustain this plant. So this guy appears to be doing very well. Now we're gonna move on to number 7. This was the spotlight of my bloom profile. This is number 7, to my kids' Dendrobium Nobile. You can see that it's holding on to one last bloom. I was super bummed, but I did update the timeline in the bloom profile video to show you exactly how long it was in bloom. But here's something peculiar. As if it wasn't enough that it gave me one bloom in the middle of February, look what's happening right up here. It's developing another bloom. I just don't understand what this guy is doing, but and you can see it's developing another one right there too. So I'm not quite sure what this guy is doing, but I'm certainly not unhappy to have such spread out blooms. It's nice that it'll be in bloom for this long. So now we're gonna move on to number 8. This was the focus of my Mystic Maze Banfieldara bloom profile, which I will also link below. But the blooms wrapped up, I updated the timeline, and almost as quickly as it dropped the blooms, it put out this entire new growth right here towards the base, which you can see is doing awesome. God, this little fruit fly, so annoying. Like I said, it is going through the same acclimation period that you would normally see when you convert to semi-hydroponics. So I'm seeing an abundance of fruit flies right now, which is driving me 100% insane. But they will subside as soon as the roots stop really decaying. So that will resolve itself in time. In the meantime, I'm just using a lot of fruit fly traps. So that is the Mystic Maze. Now, number 9, you guys, this is one that I pegged for, I don't know if extinction is the right word, but I thought this would die in the transition from Colorado to Los Angeles. And this is the Keiki that I took from my mom's plant forever ago. I burned it with Fizan. I did a lot of awful things to this plant. And just look at it. It's putting out a brand new leaf, and its root system seems to be picking up some momentum. So I'm not gonna hold my breath on this one because I've seen it go up and down so much, but this certainly appears to be a positive sign. Now on to number 11. This is my Psychopsis Mendenhall Hildos. You can see how beautiful the modeling on the leaves is. It really has gotten super vibrant. And without my awareness, it suddenly threw out, I just noticed it when I was picking up my plants today, it's putting out a completely brand new growth right here at the base. So that's a really good sign. This is just about the age where it should start to give me a flower spike. These guys are sequential bloomers and will bloom, look at those fruit flies. They will bloom for a period of, I think, like 7 years. They'll bloom for a very, very long time uninterrupted, just over and over. So I'm really hoping we are approaching that moment because gosh, I can't wait to see your beautiful blooms. On to number 12. This is my Ox Lottery Prince Phalaenopsis. And you guys, this one is also doing really awesome. In the same way that number 1 is finally starting to acclimate by putting out larger leaves than the stunted growths, it's doing the exact same thing, which is beautiful. That's a brand new leaf. But again, this one is doing all of the fun branching things. So you can see the new roots just venturing down into the medium. New roots venturing down into the medium. But when I take you in, it's branching off and putting out new roots from the old decaying root system. So the old root system is molding, which is funny because this root system developed in a semi-hydroponic environment, but it is still not viable as it pertains to transitioning from Colorado semi-hydroponics to California semi-hydroponics. So huge learning lesson there. Now on to number 13. You guys have been asking so much about how my Phragmipediums are doing following my Phragmipedium experiment, which I will link below. But I'm so happy to report that this one is doing awesome. There's still no dieback ever since I switched it to the system. Everything appears super happy and very healthy. You know, it's just doing awesome. And on top of not having continued die-off, it is putting out a bunch of new growth. So you can see that's a new growth right there. And then right down here by my finger, that is a little baby growth as well. So this guy is doing awesome, and I'm just hoping it continues on this path. Now we're gonna jump to number 16. This is my Dapper Dots Nicolasa Tavares Catasetum hybrid. And you guys, it is really finally just starting to get some momentum behind it because look at these 2 new growths. I'm so excited, and they've already outpaced. You can see when I didn't fertilize it super well and I did the adaptation to semi-hydroponics at the wrong time, it stunted the old growths so much so that they only grew about that big. But these guys I think are probably going to be just as big or bigger than this growth here in the center, the oldest growth. So this one is loving its nutrients. It's loving having lots and lots of food all the time. But it just, you know, it appears unstoppable. And it just, the growth rate of this just keeps going up and up. I feel like it's growing faster and faster every single day. So that's really, really awesome. Now on to number 17. This is my Ascocenda. And to be perfectly transparent with you guys, I was concerned about this one for a very long time. I still kind of am. It's not yellowing, it's not dying off, but it hasn't done anything. Ascocendas are known to bloom up to 3 times a year, so I was super concerned that I've had this for a while and I've never seen it rebloom. But I was considering taking it out of semi-hydroponics, and then Justin pointed out that it is putting out new roots everywhere. So it's got a new root down there. It is branching off new roots. You can see it right in the back there. All of the root systems are just starting to kind of create new roots, which I think is super, super exciting and super interesting. You can see some more right there. So I think I'm just gonna leave this alone and see what happens. Again, I'm as panicked as this transition has made me as it pertains to what's going on with my orchids and not seeing them, you know, fully thriving. I think I have to remind myself that they are going through an adaptation, and I have to kind of back off, because the more I overhandle them, as I have discovered over and over, the worse they do. So I'm gonna back off, I'm gonna see how it does over the course of the next few months, and if it continues to not really have any forward momentum, I'll make some adjustments. But as of this moment, I think it's doing fine. Picking back up with number 20, this is my Bulbophyllum Ambrosia, and this guy is just continuing to win at life. You can see it just keeps putting out new growths, and it just seems unbothered by anything I throw at it, which is super frustrating considering its sibling continues to do absolutely nothing. My Bulbophyllum Fascinator has not put out a new growth since I've had it, but this one is just trucking right along. I don't really understand what the big distinction is in how they're growing, but this one just seems to like Semi-Hydro better. So now we'll move on to number 25. This one actually kind of makes me sad. I think it's because of, actually I know it's because of the way that I packed these, still slightly damp. I've created a lot of bacterial rot on a lot of the new growths because they are more susceptible to that kind of thing. And you can see it's just really starting to take a hold here. I'm just grappling with how I want to treat it. If I want to treat it, I think I'll probably just end up spritzing it down with hydrogen peroxide and giving it a light dusting of cinnamon. Because I don't want to remove the new growth altogether, but it's just a bummer that I had to learn this way. Now on to number 27. This is also a part of the Phragmipedium experiment that everyone is so curious about, and you guys just look at it. You remember how quickly I was losing leaves and how quickly everything was dying back. It's continuing to just be fully stable ever since I put it in the system. It has this new leaf coming along very nicely. It remains a very vivid, lush shade of green. So I think it really is loving this. And I think with a little more time, it's going to do really impressive things in this grow system. So I'm very pleased with that. Now, number 28 continues to be an absolute beast. You guys, look at it throwing out roots everywhere. It just will not be contained. It refuses to calm down. And I sized it up, and it has wasted no time in throwing new roots down everywhere. I mean, this thing is a beast. It is just filling up this container with new roots so quickly. It just does not want to be stopped in any way, shape, or form. Now, the only problem this guy is really struggling with is bacterial rot, and that's a product of me shipping it improperly, just like with my other plants. So you can see it's really attacking and honing in on the new growths, but it appears to only be a few of them, so I'm not super concerned about it, but I am definitely keeping my eyes on it. But this guy is just continuing to thrive. Now on to number 29. This is just, it makes me so happy because the Elaphia is something that I wanted forever and I really thought I killed. But look at this beautiful new growth it is putting out, you guys. This bulb is starting to form. It seems really happy. It does not seem to care for a lot of nutrient content. It just wants very nutrient deficient water. So I've just been giving it primarily plain distilled water, and then every so often I'll give it a very weak flush of nutrient solution. But I'm super happy it seems to be working because it just put out that little guy, which makes me so happy. So now on to number 33. This is my Dendrobium tangerinum. I fought hard to win this on eBay, and I'm glad I did. And then I thought I killed it because I potted it up too high so that the roots weren't touching the reservoir in any way. So it started to dry out. It lost one cane and then a second cane. This was the only hope, and that hope has paid off because look at it, it's putting out a little baby nugget. So I'm super excited about that. I think everything will be just fine for this guy. He just needs some more time. So now we're gonna jump from number 33 to number 36. This is my Fred Clarkiara After Dark SVO Black Pearl. This was a birthday gift from one of my dear friends, Aria, so I was super bummed when it did nothing for a long time. You guys might remember, I actually have it over here. I divided it one bulb after the next because there was just some sort of a rot happening. So I ended up getting rid of 4 bulbs in total that had rot going on. So I really thought that this plant was a goner. I divided the final bulb, and much to my surprise and excitement, it is putting out a new growth and now just beginning to throw out some roots. So I think this guy will be fine too. I'm gonna have to get him potted up shortly, and I'll resume watering and care for it very similarly to how I'm caring for number 16, my Catasetum Nicolasa Tavares Dapper Dots hybrid. All right, you guys, this one was filmed out of order because I totally forgot about it, but I think this is going to bring you a great amount of joy. It certainly brings Justin a lot of joy because he keeps screaming, I was right. But this is number 42. This is an orchid that I declared dead in one of my In Loving Memory videos because I just thought it was a goner. And Justin refused to let me throw it away. He insisted that if I just gave it positive energy that it would recover. And I'm not quite ready to declare this a full resurrection, but take a peek at what's happening inside of this container, you guys. There is, let's see, one new growth there, another new growth there, a third new growth there, and then a fourth right here. So it appears to be recuperating, which is, this was on death's door. There was nothing happening here, and all of a sudden it has 4 new growths. It is really boggling my mind, and that makes me super excited. So I think that I want to ultimately put this in the same grow environment as I have my Phragmipediums. I think that they would really respond to it. But because these are fragile new growths and because I don't want to disrupt the root system, I'm going to leave it, let it get a little bit more established. And if I start to see that it's doing really well, then I might transition it to a air bubbler system. So that is what's happening with number 42. So now we're gonna jump to number 45. This is my Lycaste Balliae. And actually I was caring for this identically to how I was caring for my Catasetum types. I put a whole bunch of slow release fertilizer in it, and let me tell you, this guy did not like it. The new growth started to burn all of its leaf tips. One of the bulbs rotted away completely, and then there was so much mineral buildup. I'm embarrassed because I've been so busy, I haven't been able to fully invest in caring for this the way that I wanted to. I kept seeing the problem and saying to myself, oh, you really need to swap out the potting medium. It does not like that much fertilizer. And I waited longer than I should have, and it definitely impacted the plant. So I'm hoping I don't lose this new growth altogether, but I did go ahead and take out all of the slow release fertilizer, repot it, and now it seems to be doing a little bit better. So the last one I'm going to show you today is number 48. This is my Cymbidium Murasaki sinense hybrid. And you might remember it lost leaf after leaf after leaf, and I thought it was going to be a goner. And then all of a sudden it stopped. I wasn't quite sure why, but it did. And it did have this little bit of grass that was growing right alongside it. Now, ordinarily, if there is an invasive species alongside an orchid, I would remove it. But this grass seemed to appear at the same time that the orchid stopped struggling. Now, correlation does not show causation, so that could be completely unrelated, but I have left it because I think it's kind of interesting, and it's so bizarre. Look at how the roots of that grass have just kind of taken over the bottom of the container. Now, I'm not quite sure if this is a good thing or a bad thing that I'm doing by virtue of leaving it in there, but I do think that something interesting happens when there is a symbiotic relationship between plants. And I mentioned it before in my algae video, but I do think that to some extent, algae can be really great to balance the ecosystem in your semi-hydroponic container, because if you do have excess nutrient solution, rather than it becoming a mineral buildup, they consume it. So I'm just kind of leaving this to see if it is going to help this plant transition, and if I find that it suddenly is tanking, I might remove it. But for the time being, I'm just gonna leave it be. So that's pretty much it, you guys. Again, I'm so sorry I've been off of the radar. I'm gonna try to be more present, but I can't commit to anything 100% because I am traveling so much for work. But just know that I love you, and when I have the opportunity, I am absolutely creating content. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your time with me. If you have any questions, concerns, or feedback, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. Don't forget to click subscribe, and have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye, guys.